Daystar television network has died. The network shared on social media that Joni Lamb passed away this morning.
What happens when a man known for saving marriages finds his own in ruins? Doug Weiss built a career preaching commitment and healing, yet his personal life tells a different story, one filled with secrets, sudden divorces, and unexpected alliances. After the death of Joni Lamb, Doug's name resurfaced not for triumph, but for a surprising reunion that has left many questioning everything they thought they knew. Could the very foundation of his career be unraveling right before our eyes? The marriage that shocked everyone. When Doug Weiss, a man known for his decades-long career in Christian counseling, suddenly filed for divorce from his wife Lisa in January 2022, many were caught off guard. This was no ordinary split. After over 30 years of marriage, Doug left behind a relationship he had once publicly celebrated as faithful and fulfilling. The years before this announcement, he had authored articles warning men against entitlement and urging them to appreciate their wives. Now, his actions seemed to contradict everything he had preached. What made the situation even more perplexing was the timing. Just 2 months prior, Joni Lamb, widow of Daystar television network founder Marcus Lamb, became the center of a media empire, while Doug's divorce was quietly underway. Doug's sudden divorce, followed swiftly by his marriage to Joni Lamb in mid-2023, raised more questions than answers. This new union lasted less than 3 years, yet its impact rippled throughout both personal and professional circles. Doug was not just marrying a new partner, he was marrying into one of the largest Christian media platforms in the world. The contrast between a 36-year marriage ending and a high-profile, nearly 3-year marriage beginning at such a critical moment in Daystar's history was striking. But the surface barely scratches the complexity of what was really happening behind closed doors. There are shadows in this story, secrets, tensions, and contradictions that make the full truth difficult to discern. Much of the public knew Doug Weiss as a figure devoted to saving marriages, someone who built his career on guiding couples through crises. He was a prolific author, television guest, and counselor who emphasized commitment and emotional connection. For years, he celebrated his wife Lisa as the purest heart he had ever met, publicly listing the qualities that made her irreplaceable. And yet, beneath this facade, the foundation of their marriage was eroding. The divorce filing in early 2022, a legal break from Lisa, marks the start of a new, puzzling chapter, one that the public only began to grasp after Joni Lamb's sudden death put renewed attention on Doug Weiss. What most people do not immediately see is the complexity of Doug's personal and business ties that still bind him to Lisa. Despite the divorce, Lisa has never left the professional realm they built together. She continues to play a significant role in the counseling center they established decades ago. This alone complicates the narrative of a clean break. While Doug moved on publicly, privately, the layers of connection remain entangled. This sets the stage for a much deeper exploration into what really happened, why Doug made these decisions, and how all of it reverberates through the community they both served. Another layer of intrigue arises from the fact that the story only became widely known after Joni Lamb's death. Her passing ended a short, complicated marriage and left Doug standing at an ironic crossroads. He returned to a place he had left years earlier, an emotional and professional crossroads with his ex-wife, Lisa. This coincidence of timing raises unanswered questions about motivation, loyalty, and future paths. There's something almost cyclical in Doug's journey, but the full meaning of these events requires careful unpacking. The headline is just the beginning. This marriage that shocked many was more than two people joining their lives. It was a collision of worlds, long-term commitment versus sudden change, a counseling empire versus a massive media platform. The immediate shock of Doug's divorce and remarriage masks the complex realities underneath, which involve personal struggles, business entanglements, and perhaps motives that were never fully disclosed. The reasons behind the decision to leave a 36-year marriage for a short-lived one with Joni Lamb remain unclear. This mystery lingers, inviting closer scrutiny. As we begin to peel back these layers, it becomes obvious that appearances were carefully managed. Doug did not broadcast his divorce or his new relationship to the Christian community he served for so long. Instead, he maintained a facade of marital stability even as his personal life unraveled. This deliberate concealment opens the door to difficult questions about ethics, trust, and transparency. But those questions can only be addressed by understanding the next piece of this tangled story: how Doug handled his divorce and public image as it all unfolded. The deeper we look, the more complex the picture becomes. This is not just a story about failed relationships, but about the intersections of power, influence, and public perception. The shocking marriage and its timing are crucial, but the secrets surrounding Doug's divorce and ongoing connections set the stage for an even more compelling exploration of truth and consequence. Doug's hidden divorce bears directly on what came next: hidden divorce and public deception. Doug Weiss's decision to quietly file for divorce and conceal it from nearly everyone was a strategic and calculated move that has left many feeling deceived. While he continued to counsel couples on preserving their marriages, charging clients for professional guidance, Doug himself was living a very different reality. He did not disclose his legal separation to his staff, clients, or the broader Christian community that had trusted him for decades. This secrecy contradicts the values he promoted and raises ethical questions about his transparency and integrity. This hidden divorce meant that Doug kept up the appearance of a thriving marriage for months, even after filing, projecting the image of marital stability that his teachings demanded. It is a jarring contrast: publicly a beacon of marriage restoration while privately unraveling the very foundation of his own. The fact that the divorce occurred just 2 months after Joni Lamb became a widow further deepens the intrigue around Doug's motives and timing. What adds another layer to this deception is that Colorado divorce records, which are largely public, do not clearly reveal the grounds Doug cited in his filing. No media outlets reported on these details, and nobody looked closely enough at the legal reasoning behind his move. What a man claims in a court document when he believes no one is watching often reveals more about character and intent than public statements do. The absence of investigation into this is a glaring omission in the public narrative. Doug's silence extended to his professional image. Despite the upheaval in his personal life, the Heart-to-Heart Counseling Center remained open and active, generating revenue and hosting clients. Lisa Weiss, his still legally connected ex-wife, ran much of the day-to-day operation, but Doug's name and expertise continued to be marketed actively. This raises tough ethical questions about how much Doug's private struggles intersected with his public persona and business commitments. In hiding his divorce, Doug challenged not only public trust, but also professional accountability. As a licensed counselor operating in Colorado, he is subject to strict ethical codes. These codes govern what counselors can and cannot do while providing paid services, especially about personal behavior that may impact clients' well-being. Yet, no formal complaints or investigations seem to have surfaced, at least publicly, about his conduct during this period, leaving a troubling void of accountability. The divide between public messaging and private reality is stark. Doug wrote in 2017 about the enemy voice that tells men they deserve a better wife, urging them to fight entitlement and cherish their marriage. Yet, only 5 years later, he quietly filed for divorce and erased the article from public view. This disappearance of his earlier convictions, deleting evidence that once supported his counseling philosophy, invites suspicion about the sincerity behind his teachings. At the center of this deception is an unspoken tension between image and truth. Doug needed to maintain credibility in order to promote his counseling career and his books. Revealing the truth about his marriage would have risked that credibility and perhaps fractured the trust of his audience. So, the divorce remained tucked away in legal files, unknown to those who most needed to see integrity reflected in his life. This web of secrecy and public deception leads directly to the role of Lisa Weiss, the woman Doug left behind but never truly left. The role of Lisa Weiss. Lisa Weiss has been a silent but central figure throughout this entire saga, her quiet presence shaping much of the untold story behind Doug's decisions. After decades of marriage, over 30 years, Lisa was described by Doug in public statements as a faithful wife and a great mother. Even recordings reveal him praising her as the purest heart he had met and someone who deeply satisfied his inner being. Yet despite this devotion, she was left begging Doug to stay when he decided to file for divorce. Her silence in the public sphere has been deafening. Unlike many stories of divorce where one party disappears, Lisa has remained very much present in Doug's life. She continues to run the Heart-to-Heart Counseling Center, the business they built together. More importantly, she holds a legal ownership stake in that business. This means Doug cannot unilaterally sever professional ties, even if he wanted to. Their lives remain intertwined on multiple levels: personal history, legal agreements, and shared financial interests, making any simple resolution more complicated than it appears. Lisa's decision not to speak publicly, no interviews, no statements, no social media accounts addressing the situation, has only intensified speculation. Some interpret her silence as dignity or strength, while others wonder if it suggests deeper pain or strategic restraint. What is clear is that she has chosen not to publicly air grievances or defend herself, leaving the narrative largely in the hands of Doug and others close to the story. Those close to Lisa tell a different story than the one Doug projected. While Doug was already emotionally involved with Joni, Lisa was reportedly not moving on or quietly accepting the divorce. Instead, she spent considerable time begging him to return, pleading for the preservation of their decades-long marriage. There is even a recorded account that Joni herself heard about Lisa's desperate appeals to Doug, which, instead of eliciting sympathy, reportedly made Joni desire Doug more. The idea that a woman's plea was a selling point is as surprising as it is unsettling. The reality of Lisa's continued presence in both Doug's life and business challenges the narrative of abandonment or mistreatment that Douglas has sometimes suggested. She did not disappear or vanish after the divorce. She stayed in the same building, maintaining the very counseling practice Doug founded. This ongoing partnership contrasts sharply with claims that Doug had no ties left to his former life. Instead, they remain bound together in a complex, inescapable arrangement. Lisa's role highlights the tension between personal loyalty and public narratives. Her silence leaves an open question. Is she waiting for something? Another reconciliation, a response, or simply time to tell her side of the story? The absence of her voice creates a space filled with speculation and uncertainty. As this intricate relationship between Doug and Lisa continues, it becomes essential to explore other people's warnings and the broader context that shaped Joni Lamb's fateful choice. The warnings Joni received before marrying Doug cast long shadows over everything that followed. Joni Lamb's warning signs. Before Joni Lamb made the decision to marry Doug Weiss, she took the unusual step of seeking outside counsel, not just for herself or Doug, but for all parties involved. She enlisted Denise Boggs from Living Waters Ministry, a professional counselor tasked with evaluating the situation with clear eyes. Denise met individually with Doug, Lisa, and Joni, listening to each side's story in detail. What emerged from these sessions was a stark assessment. Denise labeled Doug Weiss as a wolf in sheep's clothing. This was not a vague suspicion, but the firm conclusion of a trained counselor who witnessed firsthand the contradictions between Doug's public persona and private behavior. The fact that Joni received this warning in person is especially striking. It wasn't hearsay passed through friends or distant gossip. It was a direct professional caution delivered to her face. Most would assume such a warning might prompt hesitation or retreat. Yet Joni chose to proceed with the marriage in June 2023. This decision raises difficult questions about the extent to which she trusted Doug, or perhaps saw something differently than those around her. The complexity of human relationships often defies simple explanations, especially in high-profile situations woven with emotion and power. Adding to the mystery is what the counselor revealed about the grounds Doug cited for his divorce from Lisa. Denise stated that abandonment, often cited as a legitimate reason for divorce, was never addressed or confirmed during their meetings with the parties involved. This suggests that the legal justification Doug may have used to leave a marriage of more than 3 decades could have been based on something nebulous or even unfounded. Asking why Doug walked away remains an essential question, but one that has gone largely unexamined. Meanwhile, Lisa Weiss never publicly responded to the claims or the divorce itself. Her silence contrasts sharply with the complicated narrative Doug projected. While others seek the truth, Lisa's quiet endurance speaks volumes in its own way. It's clear that she was not passively accepting the end of their marriage. Instead, reports indicate that she begged Doug to stay, a plea so intense it reportedly lasted an entire day. This desperation, however, did not sway Doug. Even more telling is Joni's reaction to Lisa's pleas. Instead of sympathy or concern, she reportedly said it made her want him more, because it supposedly proved what a great husband Doug would be. This reaction challenges common narratives about abuse or mistreatment. If a woman's desperate plea was seen as a selling point, it suggests a highly complicated and perhaps misunderstood dynamic between these 3 people. The complexity of this triangle defies simple categorization. This cloud of caution and contradiction leads to examining the broader implications of that marriage, especially the role Joni's media empire played once she and Doug were united. The influence of Daystar Television Network. When Doug Weiss married Joni Lamb, he gained more than a spouse. He gained access to the powerful Daystar Television Network, one of the world's largest Christian broadcasters. Founded by Marcus Lamb, Daystar reaches millions worldwide, giving Doug the television platform he had publicly desired for years. After Marcus died in November 2021, Joni assumed control of the network. 2 months later, Doug filed for divorce from Lisa Weiss, marking a dramatic shift in both his personal and professional life. The financial and promotional relationship between Doug's ministry and Daystar has never been fully disclosed. It remains unclear whether his books and counseling programs were formally promoted through the network or how any resulting revenue was structured. Given Daystar's size and the Lamb family's substantial assets, observers have long assumed legal safeguards, including prenuptial agreements, were in place. Reports also indicate that Joni's son, Jonathan Lamb, had reservations about Doug from the beginning. While the details remain private, his concerns suggested the family closely examined Doug's intentions and role within the ministry, reflecting underlying tensions behind the scenes. Joni Lamb's death on May 7, 2026, brought another major change. Control of Daystar remained with the Lamb family and the network's leadership rather than passing to Doug. As a result, the broadcasting platform that had significantly expanded his reach disappeared almost overnight. Today, Doug's remaining public assets are his books, Heart to Heart Counseling Center, and his long-standing professional connection to Lisa Weiss. His brief association with one of the most influential Christian media networks has ended, leaving him to rebuild his ministry without the reach Daystar once provided. The rise and fall of that partnership illustrates how personal relationships and ministry influence can become deeply intertwined, especially when major media platforms and significant wealth are involved. The personal and professional twists in this story have left Doug Weiss standing at an uncertain junction where reputation and reality collide. Reputation, reality, and what comes next. Doug Weiss now faces a damaged reputation and uncertain career after a highly public fall from grace. Once respected as an authority on marriage restoration, his credibility in Christian counseling circles has been weakened by allegations of secrecy, deception, and contradiction. For someone whose career depended on integrity and personal example, rebuilding trust will be difficult. Following Joni Lamb's death in May 2026, the high-profile chapter of Doug's life ended abruptly. The ministry influence and media platform connected to that marriage returned to the Lamb family and Daystar's board. What remains are his books, counseling center, and complicated professional connection with his former wife, Lisa Weiss. Lisa still co-owns and helps operate the Heart-to-Heart Counseling Center, which they built over more than 3 decades. Despite their divorce, their shared business keeps them closely connected. Her continued silence has raised questions about what she knew, how she feels, and whether their relationship could ever be repaired. Questions also remain about Doug's professional qualifications, ethical accountability, and the lack of transparency surrounding his private life while counseling struggling couples. Although no widely reported formal complaints have been filed, the situation continues to cast a shadow over his career. The irony is difficult to ignore. A man who encouraged couples to save their marriages now faces the collapse of his own. Shared business interests may push Doug and Lisa toward reconciliation or deepen their conflict. Ultimately, Doug's future may depend not only on whether the public forgives him, but whether Lisa is willing to rebuild what they lost. Doug Weiss's story is a powerful reminder that appearances can be deceiving, and the private realities often hold the deepest truths. What seemed like triumph has become a crucible of challenge, trust, and unanswered questions. If you found this exploration insightful, don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that uncover the complexities behind the headlines. Your support means a lot.